Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I am your host, Alec Lewis. This is Tuesday, October 1st, recording this in the morning. The Vikings are 4-0. Holy cow. This has happened. What would you guys I can't even imagine. If you and I had a conversation about where the Vikings would be as they're flying to London, probably not where we'd be. But the people internally believed, and I've written about this multiple times, but if you talk to staffers, if you talk to players, there was a quiet confidence that the masses externally probably were not expecting what they expected internally. And so wild ride. First, before we get into it, a couple things. One, please like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, the subscriptions help kind of proliferate the podcast to other people, so it's appreciated if you guys hit that button right there. Liking does the same thing, and you can even, there's a little alert button for you if you are seeking future episodes. So I recommend that. If you're on Apple, Spotify, same thing goes. If you can rate, review, whatever the heck you can do over there, we would really appreciate it. I know it probably sounds like asking a lot, asking too much, being annoying, but yeah, you got to do it. Got to do it. It's been fun to see the growth of the channel. That's the first thing. We'll get that out of the way. The second thing, I appreciate the commenters who, after listening to the preview last week, were more kind about having to just look at and observe my face than the commenter earlier last week. So if you missed that episode, what you will find out is that there was a commenter who said he was tired of just watching me and seeing my face, and I told it. I replied pretty honestly, like, I'm tired of looking at my face too, but there's not really a ton we can do. If you haven't been following the work at The Athletic, I've had a really good time covering this team through 4 weeks. Some stories that I've really enjoyed. Last week, wrote about Brian Flores' defense, what makes it so different. I also spoke to Aaron Jones' sister and some of his former coaches and kind of did a story about just his arc as a player and how much it was kind of emblematic of the Packers moving on from him. So enjoyed that. We're going to have some more stuff later this week as the Vikings head to London. I'm going to London. I fly Wednesday, so we're probably not going to do a live stream then. I might do one from London depending on my hotel service and all that. So we'll see how that goes. But if you guys are going to London, let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter. Would love to catch up with you guys while I'm over there. I'm very excited. Never been to Europe. So I will be walking around like a very probably ridiculously looking person as I am over there. But I'm looking forward to it. Really am. Fish and chips, some nice coffee, which probably isn't like some special thing, but it's the morning and I'm thinking about coffee. So there you go. Sorry, I'm ridiculous, but it's what came to mind. Just full apologies. So yeah, and like I said, stories later this week. There's a big one that we'll have at the end of the week that I think you guys will enjoy, and the timing ends up being pretty perfect for it. So yeah, should be really fun. As I have done the last 3 weeks or so, I've waited. I mean, if I was so committed to just channel growth and less committed probably to the writing post-game, I would do a post-game pod, and at some point that will probably become a thing. But how I've done this over the last few weeks, if you're new here, is I just kind of give 5 thoughts after a day of marinating in what happened Sunday, of watching the film of both the offense and the defense, of talking to Kevin O'Connell on Monday, but also other people that I speak to inside the building and players and that type of thing. And it just gives me a really good perspective, I feel like, and like a fresh mind as I get to sit here feeling like I have a really good pulse on things talking to you guys Tuesday. So I just give 5 thoughts. Sometimes they apply to this upcoming game. Sometimes they apply broadly. Sometimes they don't apply at all. It's just stuff that comes to the top of my head. And I I'm just going to get right into it because I have some stuff that has been on my mind that I really want to talk about with you guys. And maybe it's stuff you have thought. Maybe it's obvious, but I'll just start. Obviously, it's a quarterback-driven league, so I'm going to start with Sam Darnold. Obviously, he returns this weekend and plays the Jets, not returning to New York. We already did that. That happened week 1. But it's been interesting as the Vikings have leaped out to this 4-0 start. It's been interesting to see the way that people have talked about Sam Darnold's success. This was Monday, I'm talking Tuesday, but this was Monday, and I was at the Vikings facility. We'd done Kevin O'Connell's press conference. We'd been in the locker room, and I was kind of just scrolling social media, and there were a couple videos of some national NFL analysts, and all of whom I respect, and they work hard, they do the job well, and so it's no knock on anybody, but a couple of the videos were like, the Vikings, their defense is good. Their personnel uptick is sustainable. They have incredible wide receiver talent. The tackles are great. Kevin O'Connell's doing a great job. Brian Flores is doing a great job. But this is them speaking. They're like, I'm just afraid that Sam Darnold is going to revert back to being Sam Darnold. And it's as if, and there's no. For me, I don't want this to come off like he has played at a Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, whatever level. There have been plays, and if you go back to the earliest podcast we've done in this season, I remember after the Giants game specifically, I referenced a pass that he threw over the middle of the field that probably should have been intercepted. And it was one of those where the Vikings have tried very hard to keep Sam within the intent of the play, to keep him, as I said last week, within the bumpers in a bowling lane. That's what they've done. They've done it well, but you still have to roll the ball down the chute and hit the pins at the correct spot, and he's done that. But there have been plays in all these games where and this is just a caveat I want to say, there have been plays where things have come pretty close to not disaster, but the turnovers that have encompassed Sam Darnold's entire career. I wrote about this on Tuesday, but his career turnover-worthy play rate, which is a statistic that PFF uses to track the likelihood a play ends up being a turnover, is 4.1% for his career. This year specifically, it's 3.8%, and it was way lower than that before this past Sunday's game against the Packers. And I'd say most effective starting quarterbacks hover around 3.0, 3.1, 3.2. So it's his turnover play rate is still at a level that gives you a little. It gives me at least a little bit of nervousness. And so again, none of what I'm about to say is to say that Sam Darnold is just this transformed superstar of a quarterback. If you're watching these games on a snap in, snap out level, the Vikings are putting him in optimal spots. The receiving core is so talented that they're creating separation. Their ability to run the football has forced defenses to defend them, where sometimes they have to play man coverage to some of the Vikings receiver talent. But still, Sam Darnold has progressed in rhythm. He has placed the ball accurately. He has been accurate throwing the ball deep. And he just, for the most part, he has colored within the lines. And it has been incredibly effective. It is part of the reason why the Vikings are nearly top 10 in almost every offensive metric: explosiveness, efficiency, the stuff that really matters. And so I guess the point here is that as I'm scrolling social media or listening to podcasts or watching the national television shows, and I hear the comment, Sam Darnold, I'm afraid he's going to just return to being Sam Darnold. Part of me can understand it from the turnover frequency, tendency aspect, but part of me laughs because Sam Darnold returning to being Sam Darnold would mean Sam Darnold is as if he had in New York and Carolina the same situation, the same receiving core, the same offensive line, the same offensive system, the same coach breathing positivity into his ears on a daily basis, the same environment, the same coaches who have the ability to adapt in game. Like what he has right now, Sam Darnold, is at a different level than he's ever had. Now, when he was in Carolina, there were spurts of success because he played with Christian McCaffrey, because with Ben McAdoo, who was then in the back half of the 22 season, the offensive coordinator, there was a very synced up approach Ben was very intentional about putting Sam in optimal situations, but that was really it. And so I just, it, like, I guess for me, it's a little bit like, the narrative is almost breathing life into the idea that once you are something, you are always that thing. And it's like anything in life. Like you guys probably know, like whether it's your kids, your family members, it's like just because something is happening in one aspect of your life at a certain time does not mean that is always going to happen. You might be in a different environment and something's going to be way different. You might be alongside different people and something's going to be way different. You might switch jobs and things, and your entire psyche is way different because your boss is way more positive or way more alongside you. And so I just, part of it irks me because I guess part of it irks me because in some ways, I think it overlooks the importance of the environment for humans, for football players, for NFL players, and really for quarterbacks. And that's why, a week before the season, or in the week lead up to the first game, I wrote a whole story about Sam Darnold in the environments that he'd been in. And I've hashed this out on this podcast if you guys have listened. Like, you hear the stories of people in New York who watched the system that Adam Gase implemented and how complicated it was, and talked about the skill players that he had in New York. Like, and I've even talked to Josh McCown about it, and it's like that situation just did not set up for success. And again, this is not to say that Sam Darnold is the most elite processor in the world or is the best thrower of the football in the National Football League. Like, of course not. Of course there are flaws, but and at some point, if there are multiple turnovers in a game, if there are 3 picks, if there are 2 fumbles and 2 picks, like, is it going to be that surprising? I don't think so to anybody. But if anything, the surprise will come because he is in an infrastructure right now that is working actively on a daily basis to prevent that type of thing from happening. And so, I that's really my first point. It's just will Sam Darnold revert to being Sam Darnold? To me, it's just a little bit of a, again, it's like a little bit of a lazy take. That's just what I have to say. I'd be curious what you guys think, but it's just been on my mind. It was on my mind Monday, and so it's something I wanted to come across. That's my point. My first point. The second point gets a little bit to just rewatching the defense in the second half Sunday. And then it applies to this upcoming week and weeks to come. The Packers, and I wrote about this, but they use 19 snaps of no huddle in Sunday's game. Before week 4 against the Vikings, the Packers had only used 5 no huddle snaps entirely. Now, if Jordan Love had been healthy, maybe that number's different because maybe Malik Willis was not up to speed with the no huddle systems that Green Bay deploys. But part of Green Bay and Matt LaFleur entering the game with that idea of wanting to go no huddle really makes sense against this Brian Flores defense. And you're probably asking why? Why would no huddle be effective against Brian Flores? Well, 2 reasons really stand out to me. The first is Brian Flores is very creative with how he uses personnel. So, like you guys know, on third downs, they use kind of most people call it like a NASCAR package, where you have 4 edge rushers on the field rushing the passer. So let's just say that the Packers know this, and they convert a first down on third down, and then they go no huddle, and they don't substitute. Then the Vikings on first down still have 4 edge rushers on the field rather than the run-stopping, capable Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard, Jerry Tillery group. So they then have the Packers would then create a personnel advantage. Again, they have to convert the first down to do it, but that's part of the reason why you run tempo. The other aspect of it is the Vikings defense and Brian Flores' system is a check system. So part of the advantage of Brian Flores' system just entirely is whatever a lot of these offenses, I guess the best way to explain it, and I'm sorting through it in my head as I'm talking this out loud. I don't have some crazy I didn't write all this out, but like part of this Brian Flores defense success is because offenses usually they can come to the line with multiple plays, and then the quarterback looks at the defense, he scans the field, he thinks they're in zone coverage, so then he checks to a specific play. The Vikings defense is so advanced, and this is it's a tribute to the veterans on the unit. It's a tribute to Brian Flores coaching, to where when offenses and quarterbacks check, the Vikings have the ability to check as well defensively. And so if offenses are going no huddle, you can kind of prevent that back and forth to where the Vikings no longer really fully hold the pin last, if that makes sense. And so that's another aspect of it. I guess that the point is I would expect teams moving forward to try to use tempo, but it's also easier to use tempo if you have a quarterback immersed in the same system for as long as Jordan Love has been with Matt LaFleur. It's easier if you have a pass protection unit like the Packers that is pretty advanced and really well coached. Like, is Aaron Rodgers capable of going fast and making checks at the line? 100%. Like he can do it at a level that maybe nobody else in the entire NFL can. And I mean, he does that regardless. So I'd expect that this upcoming weekend. But it also is possible, like if you're moving the ball effectively on early downs, and if you don't find yourself in crazy third and long situations, because those require some time and alignment to happen. So that's what I'd say. And as part of point number 2, which is really that I expect offenses against the Vikings to use more tempo as this season progresses, I do want to say, rewatching the film of the second half of that game, 2 things happened. One, and I had a buddy who was partially responsible for me creating this podcast in the first place, Gunner. He's like, it's a great point. There should be a sports psychology book about early leads and gigantic leads and how that affects the psychology of players. And I mean, you saw it the night before that game. As an Alabama guy, Alabama looks as good through 3 drives as I think I've ever seen Alabama football look in my whole life, which is saying something because they had a pretty good coach named Nick Saban. And then Georgia races back, and it felt the exact same in that Packers game. And so part of me wonders if just the defensive porousness, I would say, the holes in the space of the defense was just a byproduct of like the psychological aspects in the game. But also, it did feel like the Packers limited the Vikings pass rush, which has partially allowed the Vikings to play defensively and allow some of that space. Like, you can give up space defensively if your pass rush is so quick to get home that the ball has to come out quick, or that you can recover to space because the quarterback escapes out of the pocket. And so the pass rush kind of feeling like it fell off a little bit is something that I'll watch. Now, I do really strongly think that getting Ivan Pace Jr. back, which I expect the Vikings do this weekend against the Jets. I expect them to this weekend against the Jets. He is the best pass rushing linebacker off the ball that this Vikings defense have. And so to get a guy like him back, I think really will help this pass rush. So that was really point number 2. The pass rush, to me, that's really kind of what allowed the Packers to move the ball as explosively as they did in the second half. But also tempo was an aspect that I expect we will see moving forward, especially this weekend against Aaron Rodgers, who has as many hand signals as you're going to find. Let's see here. Third point, the short yardage stuff is an issue. And it was interesting just rewatching the offense throughout the game. Like, it did not feel like the Vikings were very committed to rushing the ball vertically and using double teams to create a push vertically in a way that they had the 2 weeks prior. And, I'll ask Wes Phillips, the Vikings offensive coordinator, on Tuesday, like, if there's a reason behind that, whether he'll be honest and explain it or not, we'll see. But part of that might have been just a healthy respect for the Packers defensive line and Kenny Clark and TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, and those guys being hard to move. Like, you're not going to try to move those guys vertically if you don't think you can move those guys vertically. It also might just be the structure of the Packers defense and the way that front kind of was aligning. Whereas the 2 weeks before, the Texans and the 49ers are similarly structured defenses that kind of, I would say they almost make it possible to move guys off the ball vertically with the way they align. And what I will say is, as I talk about the 49ers and the Texans and how the Vikings move the ball vertically against those guys, this Jets defense under Jeff Ulbrich, who hails from that 49ers tree, is a similar structure. So if you're asking, like, how do you think they'll try to run the ball and short yardage and just in general this weekend, it probably is duo runs, double teams vertically, and then Aaron Jones and Ty Chandler utilizing their exceptional vision that they've kind of put on display throughout the course of this season. Like, I that will probably be more what it looks like and more what they would prefer. And it's probably easier to marry up some of those runs to play action passes. So, the Jets defense, I looked a little bit before we got on this podcast, and defending the pass, they've done a really good job. They have Sauce Gardner, obviously, at cornerback. It's going to be a really fun matchup with him and Justin Jefferson. DJ Reed, we'll see if he's healthy, what the status is. CJ Mosley, their middle linebacker, his health status is going to be interesting to watch. But they have not been as good stopping the run, and so I would expect the Vikings to try to attack that. But that's really point number 3. The short yardage stuff has been an issue. It's harder when you can't move guys vertically. And it's something, I guess it is something worth following throughout the season. Like, is the Vikings interior capable of moving guys vertically? But again, as I say that, they have been. They were in week 2 and week 3 against the 49ers and the Texans. So be interesting to see this weekend and beyond. Point number 4, I just want to highlight, I'll tweet this, but it's like one player on the All-22 film who just really stood out is Cam Bynum. And he never really he's not a name that a lot of people nationally would know. Even Vikings fans, rightfully you focus on a guy like Harrison Smith, who's also been incredibly, he's looked great this year, both on the back end and he never gets enough credit probably for what he's doing pre-snap from a communication disguise perspective. He's incredible with what he shows from a disguise standpoint. But Cam Bynum, there were maybe 4 plays on the All-22 just rewatching the game from Sunday where he triggers from a deep safety look and breaks up passes and just looks like he is anticipating things at a really high level. And he's a smart player. Like, I could tell stories of just being in the locker room, taking him film clips and him explaining to me, well, if we watch this guy go vertical, we got to cap the number 2 with the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, holy cow, this guy's thinking at a level that I will never be able to. He went to Cal. I believe he was like a pre-med student, just a very aware guy, but from an on the field standpoint and the durability, the sustainability of what he's done on the back end, I just want to highlight him. I think it's something, if you guys are watching this upcoming weekend, just watch him play. It feels like he always is in the right spot. 2022, I go back, and there were multiple blown coverage that year in the Ed Donatel system, and sometimes he got dinged for him, and most of the time it was Cam Dantzler who missed the responsibility that then kind of fell on Cam Bynum, both in like PFF grades and the fan analysis, but he's just been rock solid. The Vikings and he were not able to come to extension, didn't feel like right before the season. Will they be able to at this point? Who knows? We'll see. It kind of probably depends on what he and his camp at Clutch Sports look for. So I just want to highlight him because I do feel like he's been really good and really solid and really consistent. And it's been important because, like, if you go back and talk to any of the Patriots defenders that played for Brian Flores, the McCourties, the Nate Ebners, just a ton of those guys, Duron Harmons, they will talk about just the importance of the safeties in Brian Flores' defense. And so, yeah, just wanted to highlight them. Watch them Sunday. It's been impressive. The last point is kind of I've received this question a bunch of times on social media, and if you're not following me, you can find me at Alec_Lewis on Twitter. Nice little plug there. Why the heck not? People have asked about Dallas Turner. What do you think? How does he look? Is he underperforming? Why isn't he playing more? And I guess like my takeaway from watching him on film this past weekend, but also just early in the year, is like I just wouldn't overreact to anything. The one thing that I'm not sure if I really fully expected, even though it was talked about around the draft, was just his ability to drop from the line of scrimmage and look very comfortable doing it. Like there are certain edge rushers, even on this Vikings roster, where they're dropping. It's like you don't really want that guy dropping. He's more of just a straight line move forward pass rusher. But Dallas Turner really can go in reverse and look very comfortable with vision on the quarterback. And he's fast enough to roam around the second level of the defense and not get exposed. This is going to maybe sound a little crazy, but like he is in a similar vein to me as Andrew Van Ginkel in terms of his range as an edge rusher, but then also his ability to rush the passer. And from a pass rush standpoint, like there was a near sack Sunday on on Jordan Love, who looks like Aaron Rodgers, as he drops back and is on his toes and whipping the ball around. But there was a near sack around the edge. You can tell he has a really good long arm. Like he'll extend, if you're on YouTube, you can see me extending my arm into the chest of the offensive tackle. He can do that extremely well. If anything, it's just probably going to take two things. Probably going to take time from a technical aspect as a pass rusher. Like that takes time for all guys. When I talked to Will Anderson months ago about Dallas Turner, that's what he said. He's like the hardest transition from an effective college edge rusher to a NFL edge rusher is the technicality of how offensive tackles are able to play you as a pass rusher. And so to expect time, I don't think that's a crazy deal. But again, I don't want to use that to say that he has not been effective when he does rush the passer. And then it's the second point I wanted to make with him is like, it's hard right now. Jonathan Grenard has rushed the passer incredibly well. He had 5 pressures on Sunday against the Packers, and he's had the highest pressure rate of any Vikings defender. Patrick Jones had another sack. He has 5 on the year, I think. He had 4 pressures in general. He's looked really good. So who are you gonna replace? Jihad Ward is really good at rushing the passer on the inside, and so you're probably not going to have Dallas Turner in that type of role. And then Andrew Van Ginkel has been so good, you don't want to take him off the field. So right now, it's just a matter of probably depth and riding the hot hand. But again, I just wouldn't overreact to thinking that like he hasn't popped. The stats aren't there. The whatever. Like I think he's probably right where he needs to be. And if anything, it's a testament to the depth the Vikings have at the position that he has not had to be on the field a ton of time. Like we've seen him a little bit at off-ball linebacker. I wouldn't be surprised, like, you know, in certain pass rushing downs, kind of like I talked about Ivan Pace earlier. Like, why not have Dallas Turner rush the passer from off the ball if it's possible? That wouldn't surprise me. It would probably fit his skill set. But I'm probably going to let Brian Flores use the guys that he thinks need to be used in certain spots. Seems like he seems like he knows what he's doing. So that's what I'd say. But those are the 5 points. And I'll just run them down real quick. Sam Darnold, the classic Sam Darnold idea, conversation, narrative, a little tiresome for me. Tempo, you'll probably see it more. But I really thought that game was interesting and probably a distinct game in terms of analyzing why the defense gave up so many explosive. Short yardage, definitely something to continue to watch. But the lack of being able to run vertically was probably the reason there. And the Vikings really didn't try to do it a ton throughout the entire day, which might just be a testament to the Packers' defensive line. Cam Bynum deserves credit for what he's done. He's been very consistent, very good, especially on tape. You can see it. And then Dallas Turner, just don't overreact. There have been really good spurts for him. He hasn't been asked to be a bell cow of an edge rusher, and you wouldn't expect him to be asked that, even though it was a first-round pick, with the depth that the Vikings have right now and the pressure that they've generated thus far. So those are the 5. This Jets matchup is pretty interesting. From a coaching standpoint, I don't even think – I'm a beat writer. You like to say objective, but I just don't think it's a remotely close coaching matchup. Aaron Rodgers probably diffuses a little bit of that, but his movement it leaves a little bit desired. Their offensive line is nowhere close to what the Packers were, so attacking them in protection seems like that's probably likely. I'm going to come back later this week with a podcast with Zach Rosenblatt, who does a phenomenal job covering the Jets for us at The Athletic, so we will dig very deep into that game, and I enjoy doing that. I hope you guys, as listeners, have liked listening to those. But that's kind of my 5 thoughts. That's how I've gone about it. As I started, this team is 4-0. I wrote a story on Tuesday with the headline of "Is it sustainable?" But I don't, as long as health permitting, and then just as long as this offensive staff is as on it from a design perspective of what they're doing in the red zone and really just offensively overall. The idea that they're going to get back TJ Hawkinson, who was last year the number 2 primary target, when you have a guy in Jordan Addison who looks like at times like he could be a number 1, and Jalen Naylor who looked like a number 2. It is a wild realm of the world to be living in right now with what the Vikings have done. But if you really pay attention, if you really watch it, if you're in the locker room, kind of like I am, and feel the vibe of this team, there is a full-hearted expectation of winning right now and commitment, and there is a selflessness with the guys that they've brought in that I think is an underrated chemistry aspect to all this. So that's what I'd say. Thank you guys for listening as always. Like I said at the top, please, if you enjoyed this, like and subscribe. If you didn't enjoy it, like and subscribe, which doesn't make any sense, but it would be great for us. So that would be awesome selflessness from you guys. We'll be back later this week. Check out The Athletic for full-on writing, reporting on a daily basis. And that'll do it for episode 21. Enjoy the week. If you're going to London, like I said, hit me up. Let me know. I'm sure I'll have some time with some beverages out there. So looking forward to it. But again, thank you guys for listening. 4-0 Vikings. What a time.